Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margot Donoghue and Sonia Mansfield, talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy.
Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donoghue, and my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hey, Sonia.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend. We're the podcast that talks about creeps from the past to the present. This is a late-breaking news creep. Dateline. New York City, 2024. This has been happening over the summer. We're going to be digging into this today, but if this is your first time listening, let me just tell you a couple of things. One of them is that neither one of us is like a super Neil Gaiman fan. We like him fine. I loved Coraline. I've talked about him on my other podcast, Book versus Movie. So I don't really have an emotional investment in him, and you'll probably be tell the way I'm talking. I don't know every single thing about the guy. But I also don't have a bone to pick with him. So this is just, we're reporting. Until now. So just understand that, we're just reporting it. And we always, source our materials. So just keep that in mind. Also, we're always looking for creeps, ideas for creeps. And also we end every episode with someone who is not a creep. So hear us out here.
Yes.
You can follow us on Facebook. We do have a basic Facebook page, but that's where people go to complain about our language. This is your warning. We use salty language in this program.
Fuck yeah.
We are much more interactive in our private Facebook group. So if you're into Facebook and you want to interact with us, you type in What a Creep Podcast Group. You have to answer a few questions before you join, and then you come in and hang out. It's super easy. Just do your best.
Yeah.
But we keep it a safe space for us to talk about all kinds of things, pop culture, things in the news, creeps from the past to the present, yada, yada, yada. You can follow us on Twitter at CreepPod because somebody had What a Creep on Twitter for 10 years, never used it.
Great.
But we're at What a Creep Podcast for Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. And some of y'all are using Blue Sky. They're reaching out to us, Sonia.
Oh.
We need to pay attention to that. And then,
sorry.
No, me too. I'm the worst.
No, you're not. You're the best.
Thank you. And then we have an old-timey email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. Once again, creeps and non-creeps, but also if you would like some stickers. And we've had some people reach out, Sonia, asking for stickers. And wherever you are.
We love that.
We super love that. So if y'all like some stickers, email us, give us your address, and we will drop them in the mail for you. Now, Sonia, do you want to tell them real quick about the website?
Yeah, go to whatacreeppodcast.com and it's everything you want to know about the podcast, but we're afraid to ask. You can click, all of our past episodes are there, and you can click into each of those posts and you'll see our show notes because we source everything we do. We're not making any of this stuff up. So you can go in there and, do a deeper dive on any of our creeps if you want to do that. We just love to give credit to the people that do all the hard work. So do that. There's also a link to our merch shop where you can get t-shirts and tote bags and face masks and journals, whatever you want with our logos on it and some various other designs that I've uploaded there for us. And there's a link to our Patreon. You want to tell them about that, Margot?
Yes, Patreon. We have our first 9 seasons on our Patreon wall. Plus, we put out 2 bonus episodes a month. And what makes those extra special, it's not just Sonia and I shooting the shit about stuff in the news and things like that. It's on video. You can see us talking and all that cool stuff. So if you're interested, we want to thank you. And I want to say thank you to LG, Kim, and Catherine. All of them have recently joined our Patreon page. We really appreciate y'all. Are the best. Another way to support us, especially if money's tight, we totally get that. If you could just leave us a review wherever you get your podcast, that would be amazing. I want to say thank you or merci. That's my Duolingo French in action there.
Oh, nice.
Woohoo. To Gingham Lemon in France, who left us 5 stars. Super well sourced. And they're from France. The Coneheads. That's not an old reference at all, is it?
Not at all. Not at all. Our one listener of our age will like that reference.
We love five-star reviews because it really helps out balance out the losers that leave us one-star reviews. But this one I loved because it's super well sourced and so much fun. And she could tell that we're
That's the
obviously
idea.
friends, which we are.
Yes, we are.
We are obviously friends.
True.
But also Spotify, Good Pods, wherever you get your podcasts. Or seriously, ask for a
Super
sticker.
helpful.
Just stick it on your laptop. Go to the coffee shop. Look really cool. That would be amazing.
Yep. Do it. Put it on your water bottle.
Yes.
That's a good one.
Go nuts.
Yeah, go nuts.
Be creative. Life is short.
You do you, boo.
You do you, boo. Indeed. Sonia, we're stalling because...
Yeah. Look, this one's going to hurt for some people. His books and his adaptations have been recommended to us multiple times. I know he has lots of fans. So I think this is a good time for us to give the little speech about it is okay if you want to like the things you like. If you want to read his books and watch his shows and all of those things, you can still do that. We're not trying to take anything away from you. You can do those things. But we also have to acknowledge that even people who create things that we love do bad things.
Mm-hmm.
This is why we've had episodes on Picasso. We've had episodes on Louis C.K. We've had episodes on
Charlie Chaplin, Coco Chanel.
Chaplin.
I mean,
Yes,
yeah.
You just do whatever you want. Like if you want to separate the art from the artist, you could go for it. You don't have to shit all over us in the reviews because you like his books. That's fine. We're fine with that.
Like his shows, like his books. I mean, we're just giving you, sometimes people want to know who the person that they're buying from. Basically, it's just being an informed consumer. Basically, your time is worth something. We don't have time for all the books and the movies and everything else. So if this is a deal breaker, maybe you should know about it.
Yeah, that I always use Woody Allen as my gauge. Like I used to love Woody Allen movies, and then I learned about him, and I was like, that sucks. I don't go see new Woody Allen movies. I still like the old ones. I, can't remember the last time I watched one, but I could. And I would still like that, and that would be okay. But he's not going to get my money now. If Michael Jackson was alive now, he may not get my money now.
Right.
But I love his old music. It's okay, y'all. Just you do you. Take care of yourself.
But it's okay also to call out people when they behave badly.
Yes.
Just because they do something you like doesn't make them good people.
Yes.
And yes,
exactly.
We're all tired of that lecture from people who are like, why does anybody like celebrities? What are you even talking about? Like, really? Eye roll.
Yeah.
Your self-esteem is amazing. Congratulations. But yeah, some of us like to, congrats. Some of us do like to acknowledge other people and think they're awesome.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Neil Gaiman.
All right.
The only way I've not read Sandman. I will talk about his other books. The only thing that I really kind of dived into with him was Coraline.
I've seen the movie Coraline.
The book is great, and the audiobook was interesting because he had music attached to it. So he's a very interesting person. And also I have to say, I really liked him from his online presence. Like he seems to be an ally. He seems to be someone who's very supportive of the LGBTQ population. He's anti-TERF. He's anti-homophobia. He seems to be righteous to us. So these allegations suck.
Not a get out of jail free card with us.
Right.
We have to call it like we see it.
So let's just begin here, as we always do. Beloved author Neil Gaiman has recently been involved in a controversy following multiple allegations of sexual assault. Several women have come forward with accusations, some of them dating back decades. For example, a former employee at Gaiman's property accused him of coercive sexual behavior during her stay from 2014 to 2021. Other women have made similar claims, including Julia Hobsbawm, who was a publicist who described unwanted sexual advances in the 1980s. According to a recent article in Business Insider, the podcast, Tortoise Media podcast, Master, the allegations against Neil Gaiman, was released on July 3rd. And then for the last couple of months, and I'm a Reddit hole kind of person. I'm always going down rabbit holes in Reddit. And Reddit's been going nuts over this. But it was released July 3rd. And there were basically 4 women who alleged that he sexually assaulted them between 1986 and 2022. And then since then, they put out other episodes, and there's been other women who have come forward with allegations.
Damn.
He's denied all non-consensual aspects of it. But many of his current projects are on hold or they've been outright canceled. And this is with Disney, with Netflix. So we're just he's one of the most popular writers of the last 30 plus years.
Yeah.
So what's going on here? Content warning, sexual assault, coercive control, and celebrity assholery. I say that's something we all need to be aware of. Sources for this episode, Rolling Stone. Tortoise Media, Master, the allegations against Neil Gaiman. That's 6 podcast episodes. Now, Rachel Johnson is one of the hosts and one of the reporters. She is a sister with Boris Johnson, who was Prime Minister of England and a total fucking bozo, who's definitely on. We have a lot of prime ministers on our list that we'll get to.
He's on the list, y'all.
He's definitely on the list. She's his sister. So that tells you, she's from that gene pool. She's a little turfy. She's not great. There's a lot of people who work there. It's not just her. So if you want to just dismiss it because of her, I say maybe cool off on that. She's not great, but it doesn't mean she's not accurate here. A broken clock tells the right time twice a day and all that shit. Okay. Julie Bindel Substack. She's also a turfer, but she has something interesting there. The Politics of Dancing. It's a Substack. Council of Geeks YouTube. This is an interesting YouTube channel because they're a little worried about kink shaming Neil Gaiman. Yeah. Sonia made a face. Okay. He's into BDSM.
Okay.
So there is some people.
All right. I could see that. Is his kink sexually harassing people? And I was like, I think it's okay to kink shame for that. But it sounds like there might be a fine line here. Okay.
Yeah. And this was done a couple of months ago. So maybe they were in their process of figuring out. I don't know. I left it in there because you can read, you can listen, watch for yourselves.
Do your deep dive.
Neil Gaiman, Wikipedia, London Telegraph, Vulture, Thinking Critical on YouTube, New Music Express, Amanda Palmer, she's his ex-wife, AV Club, that's her blog, AV Club. And the podcast, Am I Broken, which is, it broke my heart. It's one of his victims. This came out after, and
just the title of it makes me go, oh.
That one's hard, and I'm just going to give you guys a warning ahead of time. There's the person that's being interviewed, she had a sexual relationship with him. It was damaging for her. She's claiming that was damaging for her. She actually uses some clips from a session she had with her therapist. So
wow,
it's intense. So I'm just
okay.
So if you see that in the link and you're kind of like, I don't know if that makes you queasy, don't listen to it. But I'm just adding it there, like we said, because this is the shit that we do. Let me give you just the overview of Neil Gaiman because there's stuff I learned about him that made me go, what? He was born, and I think he's cute. A lot of people are saying he's ugly. I think he's actually cute, but I'm into ugly, cute British guys. Like Mick Jagger.
You like fugly.
I do kind of like a fugly.
Let me look him up.
Look him up.
Let's see.
He was born November 10th.
Yeah, he's all right.
He's all right.
Yeah. He's got like an Anthony Bourdain thing going on here.
It's a little Anthony Bourdain. It's got a little Jagger there. It's just that tousled hair, British.
I get it.
Yeah. All right. So he's born in Hampshire, England, Port Chester, Hampshire, England, 1960. Neil Richard Gaiman. His parents were into Scientology. There was a big Scientology movement in the mid 60s, and they were both super into it, and they were leaders of it in their community in England. The father was the PR person for L. Ron Hubbard.
Oh, wow.
And those of you asking, when are we doing an L. Ron Hubbard episode? Like, when you can give us enough money to fight off those lawsuits, we're definitely happy to do that.
They are very, very litigious.
Yeah,
y'all.
they don't play around. Some of his works, Ansi Boys, Black Orchard, Eternity's Wheel, The Graveyard Book. I mean, it's Marvel Man, The Sandman. He started writing, his first book was a Duran Duran book in 1984. Like that was his, which I think is a dream come true, but he was embarrassed
Is it
about
called Hungry Like the Wolf?
No, I wish. I don't know what it's called. I have to look that up somewhere else. He becomes...
New Moon on Monday. I could just keep going.
The Reflex?
The Reflex.
Girls Are Friend? Planet Earth? I can do this too, Sonia. Also in the mid-'80s, he becomes friends with Alan Moore, who created the Watchmen series, and he's also a total loon. He gets into writing and graphic novels. His first novel comes out in 1990. Since then, he's been just, it starts with The Sandman in 89, and then throughout the 90s until today, almost everything he releases has a big story around it, gets a lot of press, gets a lot of attention. The Sandman was one I was saying. He was friends with Terry Pratchett, another British writer. They created Good Omens, which is a show that we've been hearing about from people.
Yes. And Terry Pratchett, we did a non-creep on him on one of our earlier episodes. I don't remember what the creep was, but Terry Pratchett was our non-creep. So if you're like, Terry Pratchett's going to be the non-creep today, no, we've already done him. So.
Oh, okay. And we were talking about somebody else, but we decided against it. But that's just going to be Sonia and I.
Yeah. That's our little secret.
That's our secret. He's worked for Marvel. He's worked with everybody. He's been married twice. His first wife was also really into Scientology. Her name was Mary McGrath. They lived so here we go. The Graveyard Book, Good Omens, The End of the Lane, The Ocean at the End of the Lane, Stardust, American Gods, another huge one, Neverwhere. I mean, all these are just huge. Anyway, he gets married to Mary McGrath in 1985. They divorced in 2007. They have 3 kids. She was also, his family was into Scientology. He claims he has nothing to do with it now. We think it's creepy, but it's not his fault if his parents were totally into it.
Right.
He was married to Amanda. I don't know if are you familiar with Amanda Palmer? She is a singer and a performance artist, and she's a feminist performance artist. And she was with a group called the Dresden Dolls. And the
name is super familiar.
Yeah, she's real pretty. She's very good. She did a TED talk about the art of giving, asking for what you want. She is one of the first artists to use Kickstarter to collect $1 million for a project. And it got a lot of attention because people are like, don't you have a rich boyfriend? And like, she was dating Neil Kim at the time, which she was like, no, this is how I'm going to do it. And like, okay. They have a son. So he has 4 kids altogether. And he and Amanda spent their time. Sometimes he teaches at Bard College, which is it's north of New York City. Sometimes she's from the Massachusetts area. His wife, for a while, they were living in Wisconsin, I believe, when she was into Scientology. His first wife, I mean. But they also have a place in New Zealand and Scotland.
Okay.
He's worldwide, y'all. And he has, and let me make this clear, he has super fans. And people show up for his book signings. They show up for everything that he does. And he's very open with his fans, or seems to be very open. He was blogging before blogging was cool. He's very active on social media. He interacts with people. He seems to be kind of like, I'm an open book. You can, right. He's been married. He and Amanda Palmer had an open relationship, an open marriage, which we know those don't always turn out great.
Another example of you do you, but in my head, I'm like,
that's not going to work out. He's been on The Simpsons. He's been on. He's so freaking famous. I mean, if you don't know who he is, you're probably not listening to this. But anyway, hugely famous guy. He always wears like black. He's like me. He always wears black. He's known for like wearing a black leather jacket everywhere, even though it's like super hot. Like he has like his whole thing. He's also, by the way, and this is important, he says he's autistic. And so that informs a lot of his behavior. It informs a lot of like how he reacts to things. Sonia's son is neurodivergent. So this is why I mention it to her, because he also brings this up from time to time. He was big on Tumblr. He was like one of the first to like really take advantage of that whole thing. He and Amanda split up during COVID, and in COVID, they were living.
Who didn't?
Shit. Oh my God. I said that. And
getting divorced is so hot right now. Y'all, COVID broke a lot of marriages. Was
that in 2021 or 2022?
Me?
Yeah.
The split in 2021.
Yeah, so. That's with them too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, COVID broke a lot of marriages, y'all.
It broke a lot of people.
Yeah, trust me. I tried to get into couples therapy and they were like, you and everyone else, lady, get in line. Like,
ay. Also, okay, other important things. They broke up during COVID, and there was this big mystery. There was that, like I said, they're both she's also active on social media.
Mm-hmm.
They were living in New Zealand together with their young son during the lockdown, and they were very strict in New Zealand. We talked about their prime minister, and right. So she is the prime minister or their president, whatever.
Prime minister. That's right.
Yeah. Sonia's looking that up for me, but they had to follow certain rules for COVID. Everyone remembers the COVID times. You couldn't just hop on a plane and go someplace unless you had a private plane. There was restrictions everywhere. New Zealand was very, very strict with their lockdowns and quarantining. And he just took
Prime
off.
Minister, by the way.
Thank you.
Correct.
And he in the middle of the pandemic, in May of 2020, he just left his wife. He left Amanda and just went to Scotland. And then she was kind of on Twitter like, where's my husband? And he's kind of like, oh, I'm over here. And then she announced in her page, she was into Patreon before everybody else too. She has like 10,000 followers on Patreon. Like,
oh, damn.
Yeah, she's very successful. But they split up that. And she mentioned that if you paid for her Patreon, you could hear the gossip about her marriage.
We'll do the same, y'all. If you want to hear the gossip about me, go to our Patreon.
He's also very good friends with Tori Amos. Tori Amos is a Sandman fan.
Yeah.
And she wrote a song that, she called Neil and the Dream King. I had a friend that was like, my first roommate here in New York was a huge Tori Amos fan. Used to play her stuff all the time. They're very vocal and loyal group.
I will tell you, I personally like Tori Amos.
Yeah.
But every man I met in college who liked Tori Amos sucked.
Why was that?
It was like performative or
right.
something. It's like, I like her and I think she's really deep and blah, blah, blah. And then you date this person and get in a relationship with this person. And I was like, oh, he's just doing the equivalent of I'm a cool guy.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not saying that there aren't men who like Tori Amos. I'm just saying, in college, she became a bit of a red flag for me for dudes. Women who like Tori Amos, I was like, yeah, duh, of course. We all do. She's great. And then like dudes, I'm like,
Yeah.
Again,
Unless
not all
gay dudes.
hashtag not all men.
Right. But she's also gorgeous on top, like it says, yeah, she's beautiful. Tori famously talks about this many times. I think she's been one of our non-creeps actually, because she helps with. She was someone who was a victim of sexual assault and talks about it openly. And this was like in the 90s. Like she was very open about.
People were doing that,
right? So she was very open about like doing nonprofits, doing concerts and nonprofits to support those kinds of charities. So you would once again, you would think a guy that was like good friends with Tori Amos would be someone who's an advocate. He was part of in 2016. He appeared in the video. What they took with them, which was the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, was raising the awareness about global refugees. He supports people in Ukraine. I mean, he hates Vladimir Putin. He's the things that for me I would check off like that's cool.
Yeah. These are things we look for in like our non-creeps.
Right.
Yeah.
So this past summer, we had the Tortoise Media released 4 parts of a podcast, and they're about 35 minutes apiece.
By the way, other red flags in college, dudes with Scarface posters on their wall, dudes who wanted to explain movies to me at all, actually, were red flags.
Belle and Sebastian was like a red flag for me. A guy who was into Belle and Sebastian, I was like,
that's a good one too.
So this first person that was that gave their account of what happened to them, she was 22 years old. He was 61. And this was in New Zealand. And she was alone in New Zealand. She's very young. She's not close to her family. And she got into the Amanda Palmer verse and became like she was a fan of Amanda Palmer and knew people who knew Amanda Palmer and tend to be like an artistic community. And so she was friendly with them. And she heard that Amanda Palmer was looking for someone to be a nanny type figure for their son when Amanda's recording or when Neil's on tour, that kind of thing. And so this woman shows up and she had met her a few times, Amanda, but she'd never met Neil before. And when she shows up, she hires her and says, hey, come to my house and we're going to, and look after my son because I need to do this and Neil's going to be doing that, whatever. So she shows up at the house. Amanda's not there. The son is not there. The son's at a play date, but Neil is there. And she's kind of like hanging out with Neil. Exactly. And she's kind of doing the same thing. Like, I was just here to babysit, but okay, I'll hang out with you.
And I'm here to babysit Neil now?
It's odd. It's a very odd situation. Yeah. So she is there that day, like, and she's hanging out with him. And I guess he's just sort of giving her the lay of the land. This is the way the house is. This is the way we run things here. And she's going to live there. So it's getting later and later in the evening. Still no Amanda, still no son. It's just her and Neil. And he says, well, I'm going to bed. What about you? She goes, oh, yeah, I probably should too. I'm tired. And he says, oh, do you want me to run you a bath? I'm going to, yeah. And she says, oh, yeah, that sounds good. And she probably was drinking at dinner, and she's probably also just, a lot of these women, they're just Twitter pated when they're around him because they just admire him, like they're just fans.
Yeah.
And you don't think the worst of somebody when you're a fan of them. You just don't assume they're going to do something mean or attack you. You just don't. So,
no, of course. People don't think that.
He runs the bath and then she gets into the bathtub and then he walks into the room naked and then he joins her in the bath. And she's like, I know. And she's like, fuck sakes, what's going on? And then he touches her and kisses her. And I'm going to be honest, he digitally penetrates her.
Mm-hmm.
And she's kind of like, oh, what's going on here? And they begin this relation, and they start this relationship. She's 22, he's 61. And for a few weeks, she's living with them, and they're having this sexual relationship, and he gets violent at times. He's into BDSM. She hadn't had that many sexual experiences in her life, and she mostly identified as lesbian and not into dudes. I don't think she even had sex with a man before. So she was like, what is this guy doing? And why is he touching me this way? But
she poor thing.
Yeah, she wound up living with them. And then she just said these boundaries were crossed, and they were really strange, and they were degrading. And the sex that they had got more and more rough and more degrading as they went along. And at some point, like she didn't have any money, and she was staying at their house, and she was supposed to be the nanny, but like no one was paying her. And so then it was like this awkward thing of like trying to get right, because she's trying to leave, like she's trying to figure out what her options are. So she's kind of stuck in this house. I mean,
is Amanda like
Amanda's like, no, Amanda doesn't know.
She doesn't know, but
so
she's also not paying her.
Amanda's her own thing. So Amanda is an artist. Amanda likes to walk around naked. Amanda has a lot of fans. Amanda has like a lot of projects going on all the time, and a lot of them are collaborations. So she's not exactly someone that's super focused on the nanny at the house. Like she's kind of like, oh, you just take care of this thing, and I'm going to be this artist and do this thing over here. And I think like she and Neil had very much delineated their lives that way. Like, I don't think they shared money. I think that they were very much, she was trying to be equals to him, even though this guy is super fucking rich. And this is something he tells quite a few of these women, by the way. I'm very rich, and I'm very famous, and I'm used to getting my way. When women get, as they're saying these days, mouthy.
Well, and I can already picture like people are going to be like, well, why didn't she just get out of the tub and leave? Why didn't she leave? Blah, blah, blah. And it's because, now let's all try to remember, not everyone has that kind of, I guess for lack of a better word, courage or whatever. Like we're raised to be polite at all costs. Like we don't want to make anybody mad. You are trying to please people, to like, I don't know, it's almost like against your nature to like just be like, what the fuck are you doing in my tub? Get the fuck out of here, and like get up and leave. Like it would be like, that could be really hard for people. Even when your boundaries are being crossed, it's hard.
She's also, it's night. She's naked. She's alone with this guy. It's not like they live on a farm. It's not like she can just yell out the window.
And famous and older, and there's like a huge power dynamic at play here. Who's going to believe me?
Right.
Everyone's going to believe him. He's Neil Gaiman. Like he's super fucking famous and appears to be a delightful human who supports all the right things.
And
I feel bad for her.
I do too.
Sucks.
And we should talk about a thing that we've talked about this before, but we haven't done one of these kind of cases in a while, one of these kind of stories. But sometimes when bad things happen to us, and I know like just growing up in kind of a rough house, that you try to normalize things or make things funny in order to manage it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
It's a way, because you can't live in that shock all the time. You just can't. Like you have to like live your life. So you kind of tell yourself these are funny stories, or these are things that happened in the past. Sometimes when you're in a bad situation, the way you'll tell the story later is like, aren't I an asshole? I did this thing and it fell, blew up in my face. Aren't I silly? Ha ha ha.
Right.
Like it negates it. It basically tampers down the negativity of the story, and then you're not so much of a victim. And so sometimes men and women, let's say that people can get into a relationship with somebody and they're crossing boundaries, and like you like 90% of them, and most of the time it's great, but sometimes it's not. And so you don't want to give up on people either. And especially if there's chemistry, if you really feel like there's something there. So sometimes people will try to, like I said, try to normalize something, try to make it funny or sexy or cool or whatever
Mhm.
in order to make sense of it, when really it was someone taking advantage of you. And it was
Yeah.
somebody, it is a power dynamic, and someone had the power and you did not. And so her name was Scarlett, by the way. But so she was sent, and it's funny because when she says interviews, they're like, were you attracted to him? She's like, ew, no. Like, who wants a 60-year-old guy's balls? Like, I don't want that.
No,
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
I know Aisha from Below Deck loves balls, but not me, not as much.
She's so random.
But she's
so random.
22 years old, and she starts WhatsApping her friends and being like, hey, I was in the tub with Neil Gaiman. It was kind of wild. We made out and stuff. He's in an open marriage, right? So she's not ratting him out. And so she's telling her friends this, and a couple of them are like, are you okay? And she's like, oh yeah, I'm fine. It goes on for a little while, and then she gets out of the situation, but she's left feeling like really shitty and terrible. Like, this was a guy decades her senior who knew she was a fan, who knew she was vulnerable. And basically she's saying, like, he took advantage of me.
Yeah.
There's another accuser who said, she goes by the first initial K. When she was 18, she met him at a book signing in Florida. This is in 2003. And they started just hanging out together. And he was in his mid 40s. And by the time she's in her 20s, he starts dating her and they get into a relationship. And with a relationship, she submitted, she said, to rough and painful sex with him. And it's really hard to listen to because she's describing, I mean, some of this stuff is just gross. And I know I'm not supposed to say that because it's kink shaming, but some of this is just like, I'll just say not sanitary. Like, you could get E. coli or something from some of the stuff he's into. It's pretty goddamn gross.
I am picking up what you're putting down. Okay,
yeah.
Sounds gross.
And
again, you do you.
You do you, but I'm just saying, if somebody could get E. coli from it, it's probably not a great thing. That's all I'm going to say. Nothing else.
I draw the line.
At E. coli's. Yes. Rough and painful sex. She would tell him that we could do everything but kind of thing. And then he tried to push that boundary with her.
Of course.
And one of the times they were hanging out, she had UTIs and they were very painful. And she said, please do not insert anything anywhere. I'm kind of not into that. We could do other things, but I don't want that. I will do anything for love, but I won't do that.
Yeah.
He broke that boundary, let's just say. And it was incredibly painful for her. Once again, she's
terrible.
20, he's in his 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's these two stories that they release, and this is in early July. Okay. So there's like in all of July, people are going back and forth, and it was behind a paywall too. So some people are like, I'm not paying money for this Tortoise Media because one of them is turfy. Only one, by the way, from what I can tell. I did some research and it seems like everybody else is on. And I feel like the journalism is solid here. But this is the story that made me realize, like, we need to have this conversation. So in August, there were more women that came forward, and they were on this podcast. And the woman that I want to talk about is Carolyn. And Carolyn was a woman, she and her husband lived at the Woodstock property that he had with Amanda. She and her husband and their 3 daughters lived on the property, and they were caretakers. And they always had a friendly relationship with Amanda and Neil. And then she broke up with her husband in 2017. And when she did that, Neil Gaiman said to him, you have no work here anymore. You need to leave. And so she was there living on the property and working for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when, and he had promised her, she says they had a verbal promise that he was going to help her come up with the money for her to buy the house on the property. Because that's the thing she's taking care of 3 young kids.
Yeah.
She split with her husband. You know, doesn't have a lot of money in the bank. She's working for this couple. She's hoping that they'll take care of her. And so she's in this position where she felt like she had to and there's a lot of I read this interesting article in Vanity Fair, or was it Rolling Stone? Was it Rolling Stone or Vanity Fair this week? But it was about Matthew Perry, and he had one of his assistants gave him the lethal injection of ketamine that killed him, that eventually led to his death. And there was an article about, like, he was his personal assistant, and personal assistants with famous people don't make as much money as you think they're going to make. And their lives are 24/7 wrapped around this famous person.
Yes.
And whatever they want. And it gets drilled in your head. And they hold your paycheck over your head.
Mm-hmm.
And they tell you when you're going to sleep. And they tell you, like, you're going to get me drugs, or you're going to look the other way when I'm having sex with this other person and stuff like that. It can be really gross. So this Carolyn woman is divorced. She's mother of 3. She's living on their property in Woodstock. And then Neil starts saying to her that he wants to have a sexual relationship with her. And he's making it clear to her that she needs to, if you want to stay here and you want me to help you with your house, let's figure out a way for you to pay me. Let's figure out a way that we can work together to make this happen for you. And what that meant was him sticking his dick in her mouth. He wanted blowjobs. And she said, and this is she told Tortoise Media, all he could say is it was consensual, but why would I do that? It was because I was scared of losing my place. When he would just come to my studio and make me give him a blowjob, he also told her, you need to call me master. And this is what a lot of the women,
Ew.
I know. And it went beyond, I mean, it was choking, and it was sexual contact, and it was choking, and it was other stuff. But he says, you take care of me, I'll take care of you. And this graduated to, when he went on the road, he would ask her, and he asked a lot of these women for sexually explicit photos, to live stream, to, FaceTime, sexual acts.
And then he has these things on them, right?
And this could be something that, for all they know, he can show to his friends. He could put out on Twitter or anything, any moment. So that becomes a thing that's held over your head. She was with him from 2014 to 2021. And eventually she just got tired of it. And so she stopped responding to him. And that's when he basically kicked her off his property. And so she had to basically start all over again. She sued him for the sexual assaults and basically terrorizing her. And she won a judgment, and it was $275,000. And she had to sign an NDA. And he was very clear that she had to sign the NDA before he would do anything. And he did this for other women. Like, you have to sign the NDA before he'll pay you your salary that they've been promising you for months. Like, it's he and Amanda. And they do, and celebrities do ask for NDAs, but we're learning now, especially since the Harvey Weinstein days, like, you're not supposed to do that. If they're committing a crime, you're allowed to you're allowed to disclose if it's a crime, if it's like actually against the law. But people were using NDAs to, like, just cover up all their bullshit.
Yeah. And so an NDA, you could sign that, and it's like, you can't tell everybody that, that I like to watch whatever. I'm trying to think of something silly. That I watch Days of Our Lives every day. Like, you can't tell anybody that. But if somebody's committing a crime, you're absolutely allowed to tell. Is that what I'm understanding? Okay.
But they scare you.
Also, no shame if y'all want to watch Days of Our Lives every day. That's
do
fine.
it. Yeah, do you, boo? But yeah, you're asking people to lie about a crime. Like, that's not okay. But they get to the point where you almost don't think it's a crime. You think you just had bad judgment, right? And people, and some people will say that, and it's not okay, and it's not.
Yeah, well, and people again anticipating what people who listen to this might say, they could argue that these women are putting themselves in shitty positions and having bad judgment. Okay, but he's still a creep.
Yeah,
like it doesn't change the fact that he's a fucking creep.
Yeah,
like this is fucking. He's gross.
It's gross. Originally, she was kicked off the property. They offered her $5,000. It's like, wow. And this is a rich man. He sounds like super fucking cheap, like from what I can tell. But eventually she got $275,000 and then the NDA, but she felt compelled to come forward after she heard these other claims, because she was meant to feel like it's just you. Everybody else thinks I'm great. You're the one with the problem.
Again, he's out there, doing all these speaking tours, doing all the right things, donating money to the right things.
Right.
Looks like he's, an ally, like you said at the top of the show. And he, but behind the scenes, he's a fucking creep.
Yeah. Another woman that contacted them, she was 22 years old when she met Neil Gaiman, and no, I'm sorry, she was 18 years old and she met him in 2018. Sorry, there's so many women here that are talking about him. Yeah. And this is the Am I Broken story. She met him in 2012 at a bookstore, at a book signing, and then they got into a 10-month relationship where he would take her to places, but he expected sex in return and the kind of sex that he wanted. And so it was this constant negotiation, like, I'll do this, but I won't do that. And it was more and more degrading. And it was more and more. And every time he had to call him master. And he very much like held the purse strings and expected people to just be on call. So if he left you a voicemail, you were in trouble. Like you should be able to pick up the phone whenever he wanted it. And he made it very clear to her, like, I'm famous, I'm rich, a lot of people want to be with me. I am special, basically. You're not. So when I tell you to do something, you have to do it. This is the same guy that like goes on Twitter and says, "Me Too movement. I'm with you guys. Harvey Weinstein sucks." Like,
oh, performative allyship.
Yes.
Oh, makes me so angry. And this is not an episode that we're video recording so that you can't see my face. It's just like,
I can see your face, but you guys can't see it. But she's like, yeah, she's rolling her eyes. He said to her, this girl, her name is Claire. He said to her at one point, "I am a very wealthy man and I'm used to getting what I want." Later on, she reached out to him about her experience like 10 years later and said, "This was really fucked up what you did." And he has these long conversations with these women and they leave long voicemails to one another. So they all have his recordings of him calling them. And one of them, he said to her, "I honestly, you've really made me think about things. You've really made me think about things. And I'm thinking about the fact that you've had to go to therapy for 10 years. And I'm thinking that's like $500 a month," which no, it's more than that, dude. But I'm going to give you $15,000 a year for the next 4 years because that's the most you can give somebody and not have to pay taxes on it. And he goes, "What about that? And I make a donation to the rape charity of your choice, like whatever nonprofit you feel good about." And she's like, "Oh, okay, that actually sounds pretty good." He did send the money to her, but he never made the donation. They can't find any donation, right? And he made a big deal about like, and he said to her, and you can hear these recordings, "I've done worse stuff, and I realize now that it's really shitty what I did in the past."
And here's the thing, y'all. We're talking about a grown-ass man.
He's in his 60s. He's 63 now.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's not like, hey, I did some really fucked up shit when I was younger. Like, and when you're younger, you're thinking, what, teenagers, maybe early 20s, we all make poor choices. This is a man well into his 40s, now in his 60s, making these things, making these decisions. He knows better. he knows better.
He's keeping them mostly in the same age range.
Yes.
Even though he gets older.
Yeah. And they stay the same age.
They stay the same age. Yeah. Right. And he, like I said, he sent her $60,000 for her therapy. He admits that he fucked up. But since then, they've approached him with this stuff, with these accusations. He says, oh, no, it was all consensual. It was kinky. It was consensual. I don't know why. I think this person has a problem with false memories, and I'm autistic. So sometimes I don't catch, people's cues, their social cues, which is
very sensitive about people who say that because there are a lot of autistic people out there and they don't sexually assault people.
Right.
Like,
yeah, it's not great. So this is right now, there are a lot of women that are coming forward. It's since this came out, you can now listen to the podcast anywhere. You don't have to pay. It's not behind a paywall, so you can listen to it for yourselves. But these are there's a lot of chatter going on about that he's been known to be creepy. Like he just has creepy requests for people, women, young women, older women. It doesn't really matter. He uses his fame to meet fans. He uses his fame to get into BDSM relationships. And then he doesn't honor the whole part of it. Like it's supposed to be consensual, but if you're the famous one and the rich one and the important one, and especially he attracts women who like say, oh, I want to be an artist. I want to be a writer. I want to be a whatever. And he's like, oh, I can introduce you to people. And who doesn't want to hear that? I mean, a guy does it for another guy. Nobody thinks twice about it, but a man does it for you and you're expected to like drop your panties for him.
Yes.
Right. So this
and he's a creep. This is creepy. We're allowed to call out what's creepy here. Like
the Scarlett, who was the one that he went into the bath with her and she had a relationship with him. And this is where it gets odd because some things, you say yes to. It's when you're in a relationship with somebody, you don't always just get to have sex whenever you want, any way you want. They're allowed to say no. They're allowed to say, I'm not doing that. Or, yeah, we tried that thing one time, but I didn't like it. Let's do something else. Like you're allowed to have agency. And
yes,
just because you said to one thing before doesn't mean you can then ask for something else. And it feels like he just, doesn't even ask. He just kind of goes forward and you can apologize later, but he doesn't see, one of them, one woman, he would choke, like the woman who stayed at his house in Woodstock. Call me your master. Tell me you want it. Tell me you want it. That's something he wanted to hear all the time. Tell me you want it. He would choke me sometimes. When I woke up, Neil was in the bed and he put my hand on his cock. If I resisted his sexual advances, he would push back about that. He says, but you take care, Gaiman told her, but you take care of me and I'll take care of you. And that was like their sexual trade. And that's the relationship. And he doesn't seem to think that that's a problem. He seems to think that that's okay.
What a creep.
He's a creep. So that's, it's... The women are being treated for things like post-traumatic stress and depression. They've had like I said, they have their therapy bills and they just have the trauma of dealing with what they've dealt with. This is just also old-fashioned misogyny. The man gets what he wants and women are just put on this earth to tolerate terrible men or turn them around after they've been terrible to us for a long time. This one woman who's a book publicist, she was 22 years old and he was 25 and they were friends and she went to events with him. Like he was a young star in the scene. And I've been a book publicist. I've been a 22-year-old book publicist. And I've had creepy guys hit on me. They went back to her flat and she said, I literally have no memory of how we came to be back there. They were probably drunk. What I'm totally certain about is the romance was not in the cards, not for me. And I did not believe it was in the cards for him. And that's when they were hanging out at her place. He jumped on her out of the blue, forced his tongue into her mouth and pushed her onto her sofa before she wriggled free. And that's when she had to cut off contact with him. And his whole thing was like, oops, I had the wrong message. I thought you were going to be into it, but you're not into it. He's still doing this shit. Like, this is from the 80s. And he's still pulling this crap. And that's our creep.
So gross.
This week. Neil Gaiman. Those are the charges. That's what people are talking about right now. So like I said,
There'll be more women.
There probably will be. I think he needs to be honest about what he's done and open up about it and be an advocate for change, an advocate for being better and doing better.
Yeah.
I wanted to read something that Amanda Palmer wrote. I'll end it with this. Amanda Palmer wrote on her blog last year at this time when we were talking about Russell Brand. And by the way, one of the women told Amanda about what Neil did. And she said, oh yeah, you're like the 13th person to tell me that. Yeah. Amanda, one of the things that's controversial about her is that she's been the victim of sexual assault a few times in her life, and her whole thing is forgiving people, and like she forgives her rapist. I'm not into that myself. You're allowed to be into whatever you want.
I'm definitely not into that.
Yeah, I would not be into that. But she was talking about Russell Brand, and he was being Me Too'd. I mean, we've talked about him several times.
Yeah, we have. He sucks.
Yeah. She said about a few weeks ago, my high school groomer, the man who sexually assaulted me when I was 14, I liked at the time calling him my corruptor, passed away. He lost a lifelong battle with addiction. As a teenager, I wrote my first significant handfuls of songs about him, about what he did and how horrible and disorienting it all felt. One of those sounds wound up on the Dresden Dolls' first record. I was 15 when I wrote it. It was this guy who first tragically taught me how to transform the pain of sexual harm and confusion into art, to transform violence into a good little goth song and into an offering I was allowed to give the world. So this is how she manages. I know you're making the face again. You guys can't see your face.
I'm like frowning. I'm just like,
She had worked with Russell. I met and podcasted with Russell in 2019, and he was nothing but kind to me. I have the feeling his behavior has probably evolved for the better since the time these assaults allegedly, and in my opinion, probably happened. That's good if it's true. People who have done stupid shit can evolve. What's not good is if the whole thing goes away in a mess of smoke and faffing of hands around cancel culture. It's a red herring. So I am not quite sure what she thinks. I mean, this man is the father to her son. They were together for over 10 years. I'm sure it's a very complicated, like her whole thing is that she wants to be compassionate and not be a victim forever. And her way of managing that is to kind of make art from it.
Sure. And if that's what works for her, great.
Yeah.
But that's not going to work for everybody.
Right. But she said, please don't leave us to be my long-held stance, radical compassion for all beings, always. For Russell, for these women, and for all those affected by the endless tendrils of violence. May we find a way out. Men, we are looking at you. Please don't leave us to do all the excruciating work here. Please don't leave us to be the ones sewing and agonizing in the false safety of silence in order to protect the kids, protect the family name, protect the company, protect the firm. Help us out. Just be more honest. It is time. I wonder how she feels about that with her husband. Ex-husband, excuse me.
Yes.
So that's
send that to him.
Our creepy story this week, our creep this week. Neil Gaiman.
Good job, my friend.
Thank you.
Are you ready to hear about someone who's not creepy?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know who J.K. Rowling is? No, just kidding. Just kidding, everybody.
He was friends with her.
Yeah, of course. That would never happen. No. I did quite a bit of poking around on this one and landed on author John Green, who I have never read, but that doesn't mean anything because I'm the world's slowest reader. But he has written books like Paper Towns and Turtles All the Way Down, and most famously Fault in Our Stars. He's very popular in the like young adult fiction. And I'm going to list a bunch of non-creepy things he did. But so born John Michael Green, August 24th, 1977 in Indianapolis. So Green has talked about my dog started barking right when I started talking, of course. Anyway, he said he had a happy childhood, but he wasn't always a happy child. He struggled a lot with anxiety and obsessive compulsive disorder. He was bullied a lot in high school, but he tried to channel it into good things. He went to college in Ohio, to Kenyon College, graduated with a double major in English and religious studies, and like joined a comedy troupe there and, tried to find his way. After graduation, he actually worked as a student chaplain at a local children's hospital in Columbus, Ohio, and then actually went to the University of Chicago Divinity School. And he was thinking about becoming a priest, basically. Yeah, but working in the hospital with the children made him just reconsider his path. Eventually, that's what would lead him to write The Fault in Our Stars, which I believe is about two teenagers who both have cancer and fall in love.
Yeah, I haven't covered that yet for book versus movie. People want us
it's
to.
a super bummer.
Yeah.
But like, again,
and a Christmas movie, I think it takes place at Christmas time. I could be wrong, but that's what I heard.
Yeah, maybe. So anyway, that was his inspiration for that book. But he decided not to become a priest, obviously, and he got a job as like an editorial assistant for the book review journal Book List, and that's kind of what led him to writing his own books. And again, he's written a ton of them: Looking for Alaska, Paper Towns, The Fault in Our Stars. There's a bunch of other ones that they're all popular. But the reason I picked him was, so along with his writing, he has maintained a YouTube video blog with his brother Hank. He's been doing it since 2007. It's called the Vlog Brothers. And they turned that into something called VidCon, and it's an annual conference that brings like the online video community together in person. But then they also launched like a spinoff called Crash Course, and it's like an educational channel, and they have different hosts come on and they talk about like science and humanities, like astronomy, chemistry, history. It's all about teaching people. It's all geared towards teenagers, and it's in like a format that teenagers super love. He also launched something called Project for Awesome. That's its name. And he asks fans to tell him, like, and his board, what charities mean the most to them. And then they make donations to that. So then all these teenagers make their own videos about these charities, and then they pick some and they donate to that. And their quote is, thousands of people post videos about and advocating for charities that decrease the overall level of world suck. And it's also he has a foundation that's connected to that called the Foundation to Decrease World Suck. And it's a nonprofit that then it like distributes to all these different charities, and some of them are like Save the Children, Against Malaria Foundation, Ultimate Peace, the Ocean Cleanup. They raised over $2 million last year. Starting in 2012, John and his brother started doing something called Pizzamas, which is like Christmas combined together. And they started selling merchandise, and then people started making fan art, and then they put those on like blankets and tote bags and stuff like that. And all the proceeds go to the organization Partners in Health. And then in 2022, John Green became a member of the board of trustees of Partners for Health. And he's actually this like really thoughtful spokesperson for like equitable health. You know, he led like a successful campaign to persuade Johnson & Johnson to release some like generic versions of their drugs for tuberculosis so that like globally they could like, you know, release it in some like poorer countries, things like that. In September 2023, he attended and spoke at this United Nations meeting about tuberculosis. Him and the Green brothers are paying like $1 million a year through 2027 to the Department of Health in the Philippines to help fight tuberculosis there. Like the guy's putting his money where his mouth is. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has named him like a TB elimination champion, which I guess is a thing. I don't know. They also, John and his brother, they do this stuff together. They also started something called the Awesome Socks Club. And it's basically like a monthly subscription service, and you sign up to like receive a new pair of socks every month. And they're designed by like independent artists. And this is all like based on like kind of the Newman's Own model. Like all the money goes to charity.
Oh,
like,
I love that.
So they did one for Awesome Socks. They've done one called Awesome Coffee Club, and it's ethically sourced coffee, and all that money is donated to charities. And then they have one for soap, and then they're just like putting them all into like a store together called like the Good Store, and all that money all of it to charity.
Love that.
And then he is one of many writers who've recently joined lawsuits in Iowa. And where's the other one? Where is it? Florida. I should have known it was Florida. Because they have filed lawsuits to overturn their book bans.
Nice.
So good for him. I mean, the guy just seems like not a creep.
No, that's like, total not a creep material.
Like this is someone who has a lot of like he's using his power for good things. And that's our non-creep, John Green.
Oh, thank you, Sonia. That's
I guess,
amazing.
And his brother Hank, because they do a lot of stuff together. It's
like Travis Kelce, you know, he and his brother.
Yeah,
now podcast titans.
Yeah, they are.
That's amazing. Thank you, Sonia. That was great.
You're welcome.
If you like the sound of our voices, we co-host a show called Dorking Out, where we dork out about movies. The current episode we just talked about was
Josie and the Pussycat,
which I loved. I'd never seen before. It was a first time watch for me. And I loved
it's adorable.
Everybody drank.
Yes. And then this week, in honor of Beetlejuice, we're going to talk about Beetlejuice. I've said it 3 times. What have I done?
Oh, please tell me Michael Keaton's going to show up.
Oh my God.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
I'll call him Master.
So that's what we're doing next. It's going to be super fun. That movie is streaming on Max.
Nice.
If you want to go watch it before the episode drops.
Excellent. All right. So all those places I mentioned at the top of the show for your ideas for creeps and non-creeps, please reach out to us. We love it when you use the Annie Potts gift. We got one from Ghostbusters, or just pick something else. Y'all are clever people. You can do that.
Yeah.
Our email, once again, is whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. And Sonia, where can they find you?
You can find me at thesoniashow.com and The Sonia Show on Twitter, Instagram, I wouldn't recommend Facebook. Blue Sky, Threads, Friendster, wherever you go. Where can people find you, my friend?
I'm at brooklynfitchick.com. I'm at brooklynfitchick for Threads and Instagram. I'm looking to grow those places, so please follow me there if you can. I'm at Brooklyn Margot for TikTok and for Twitter. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Be good, be kind, be nice to each other. Just don't be a creep.
Be a creep. Thank you for listening to us talk about creeps. You can follow us at What a Creep Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
But don't follow us too closely.
You can email us your creepy stories at whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com.
But please keep your dick pics to yourself.